Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. The way the election result has been handled in the riding of Terrebonne in Quebec is absolutely insane. We had on election night the Liberals winning the election, but after special ballots were counted, it swung over to the Bloc Québécois. And then a judicial recount was undertaken because the result was very close. The Bloc Québécois had only won by 44 votes. And after the judicial recount, the Liberals ended up winning by a single vote. But then there was another ballot found that verifiably shows someone was trying to vote for the Bloc Québécois and Elections Canada screwed up and gave them the wrong address to mail the ballot into. And they're not going to count that one because apparently, what's one vote between friends when the Liberals are ahead? So, this is how Elections Canada is currently handling the situation. Global news here in this headline says Elections Canada says the results of a recount in the federal riding of Terrebonne is final, despite a misprint that led to one special ballot being returned to sender. Now, I'm just going to read an excerpt from the article here. I don't need to bring it up on camera, but it says, despite the error and questions about the possibility of another recount or a by-election, Elections Canada spokesperson Matthew McKenna said the result of the recount is final. Quote, the Canadian Elections Act does not explicitly provide for the appeal of a judicial recount, and Elections Canada is unaware of any appeals brought to a court following a recount. What? That's stupid. So just because he doesn't know that there's ever been something like that before, the act doesn't explicitly say we have to do it. So who cares that this is basically just a subversion of democracy? Somebody had the ballot, they wanted to vote. It shows their ballot sealed, they had mailed it in, but because Elections Canada misprinted the wrong automatic returning address to the ballot that they would have stuck in their mailbox and hoped it was going to get into Elections Canada. It bounced back, came back to them, and they're like, I was trying to vote block, and you guys basically didn't let me. Elections Canada, like, meh, meh. Like, what? That's insane. Did they do this intentionally? I don't know. I don't think so. But I think at this point, Elections Canada, if they're pro liberal, maybe they're taking this as a happy accident. Well, it just so happens that we can ignore this ballot and allow our favored party to win. Do I absolutely know it's their favorite party? I guess not. But guys, the evidence is kind of there to suggest that they might want the liberals to win, considering how ridiculous this is. So we see right here from the CBC news headline, Liberals won Terrebonne, Quebec, riding by one vote, but this woman's block ballot wasn't counted. And we can see here that the address that they had provided onto the ballots were not the right one. She has the ballot there. It's all still signed and sealed. And they can verify that this was the wrong address for Elections Canada in the Terrebonne riding. But again, we're not going to do anything about it. By the way, I'm not even saying that they should just count this one lady's vote. I don't even think they should count her vote. I think they need a new by election. How do we know how many people may have sent in a vote and it was the wrong address? The thing bounced back, but they just didn't complain about it. And it could have caused the Liberal to win or the Bloc to win. You have a by election in a scenario like this when you really don't know with a gun to your head certainty who won. Because at the end of the day, the riding deserves to be represented by the person that the population wanted. In this case, we're just going to have someone represented, just one of the two parties, flip a coin, that person gets to represent it. That's not how democracy works. That's not how our first past the post system works. You don't just keep counting and stop counting after your favorite party wins. And then when the other person finds a ballot, they're like, well, there's no technical way of having an appeal. Figure it out. This is what courts are for. And I think the good thing is that Yves Francois Blanchet, the leader of the Bloc Québécois, is not taking this lying down. And I do believe that they will be appealing this in court because, dang right they should. You're not just going to, where are you going to go? Just kind of like weekly let the Liberals just take the riding simply because Elections Canada can't get their crap together and they're too, mentally lazy to figure out if they can actually rectify this. Well, the act doesn't say we have to rectify it, so we're not going to. Why do you people think there are people whose trust in the system is undermined? Do I think the election was rigged? No. But I think when small issues like this come up, there are people incentivized to not take it too seriously if not taking it seriously helps the Liberals win. I think that that's what we're seeing. Yeah, we had 800 special ballots get lost in British Columbia, and I think they've now counted them. Maybe I don't actually even know. Probably wouldn't swing anything because most conservative or liberal wins were greater than a few hundred votes, and all those ballots are from various different ridings, so it wouldn't have made a difference. But guys, goodness, it's not election denial to say that Elections Canada and in the BC provincial elections, Elections BC, and in other provinces, they need to get their crap together and figure out how to do this. Or I can't defend them from people who want to say the entire thing is rigged and it's a farce and it's just a show vote because they're not giving me a lot to work with here. They're not giving me a lot of action to demonstrate that no, they take this seriously. Right now in Terrebonne, they're dragging their feet. They do not care. And this does matter a lot because it gets Mark Carney closer to a majority government. And every seat that he gains or loses sort of changes the dynamic in Parliament with how he negotiates with the NDP, with how he negotiates with the Bloc, how likely he is to want to go towards another election. It actually is extremely impactful right now. This, in fact, is probably the like number one draft pick scenario where you want to make sure you get the election right because this gaining them a seat, getting 170 seats means they're only 2 away from a majority, and then they also need a speaker, and that maybe they can get a couple NDP to cross the floor and give them the majority. If they're 3 or 4 seats back, it might be a little bit more difficult to get that many NDP to cross the floor, and maybe no one wants to leave the NDP at that point because you're stronger together in your party. We need properly done elections. Bureaucratic incompetence in other departments in government have obviously bled into Elections Canada, and I hope the federal Conservatives, Pierre Poilievre, Yves-François Blanchet, and Don Davies in the NDP all start calling for there to be an actual review of how Elections Canada does its work, because this is unacceptable. They actually need to have accountability. And if the Liberals start screaming at them that they're election deniers and whatnot, deal with it, just push forward because they're absolutely wrong on this issue. And any normal citizen, knowing the details of a case like this, does not think that the bureaucrats in Elections Canada are right. And they know they're playing games. They know that they are using the fact that they don't technically have to do anything against the voting public who actually wants the results of the election to be accurate, not to be accurate within a vote, because if that vote can decide who's in government or if there's a by-election and the Bloc might win, it kind of does matter. But again, I hate when people act like, well, it's just a vote. I've seen people online saying that, kind of like the Laura Babcock kind of position. Oh, it's just a vote. What the heck? It's just a vote that kind of decides a lot of stuff in this country. But again, these people only consider it democracy when they win, so this is a democratic outcome in their minds. But if it went to a by-election, the Bloc one, that's not a democratic outcome because they believe that they represent the will of the people. And so if their candidate doesn't win or they don't win the election, it's because the will of the people was subverted, undermined, or people were confused, lied to, and voted the wrong way. Anyways, so that's it for this video, guys. Just trying to keep it shorter today. I will have more content coming out in either later today or I'll try and do something tomorrow. I just did a couple recordings with Candace Malcolm at Juno News, so I encourage you guys to go and subscribe to Juno so you can watch those if you haven't seen any of my appearances with Candace Malcolm yet. But again, until next time, guys, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys all later.